All right, welcome everyone. As Diana mentioned, my name is Noopur Inani. I am a product manager for task mining, and we're going to talk a little bit today about, task mining as a product, the updates that we've had in 22.10, and specifically a new feature called assisted task mining. So I like to set the stage by just reminding folks, especially introducing, folks, especially if you might be newer to task mining, a little bit about the key benefits of utilizing task mining, right? So UiPath's task mining product leverages a desktop recorder to collect your employees' actions to then actually leverage AI to drive visualizations and insights that would provide you with the opportunity to drive actionability. Now, actionability can be found in a multitude of ways, whether that's standardizing your documentation, updating process design documents, or even automating. So we do export to XAML files in Studio to be able to accelerate your automation journey as well. For those of you that have used task mining before, you might be familiar with our existing product. That is now called unassisted task mining there on the right. It's predominantly used to mine unknown data and to get a better understanding of potential bottlenecks or variations from a group of folks, maybe 5 to 7 users within a department. The new feature we're going to be focusing on today is assisted task mining. Assisted task mining is used to capture a little bit more detail about a known task. So rather than an unknown data point, maybe you have an idea around a use case. Let's just use finance and accounting. We know there are some bottlenecks at month end with finance and accounting within the organization, but we want to know a little bit more detail around those variations and bottlenecks to be able to get a comprehensive picture of what's happening. So the primary difference here is we've kind of gone into the scenario with a little bit of context. With assisted task mining, with unassisted task mining, we might have some ideas, but we're really truly mining the unknown data points here. So today we're going to be focusing on assisted task mining. There is a lot of content here, so I do want to just call out a few different pieces that are really relevant to you. Assisted task mining is a web experience, so it is really collaborative. We're going to be demoing that to you as well, and allows you to collaborate within your organization and within teams to be able to actually get that comprehensive picture of the task. One of the key features we're going to focus on today is merging functionality. So when we have different kinds of team members that are completing that task in different ways, we can actually use merging functionality to put them together, find their similarities and differences, and then decide on the actions that you want to take. Again, whether that's standardized documentation or that's an export to a XAML file with your next steps. Now, overall, this has improved performance we've seen in the web. We have a multitude of things that we've done to make this more performant and scalable as well with collecting your recordings as compared to the previous recording experience with unassisted task mining. And it is already in public preview. So this goes to GA on November 17th. However, we're already in public preview, and drum roll, the kicker is this is a free feature. So this feature is not associated to a cost at all at the moment, and we are able to access this in public preview for any enterprise or community license or trial by simply enabling the task mining service on your tenant. So you don't need to have AI units as you would with unassisted task mining to access this, and you simply have to enable the task mining service on your tenant, and you're able to go ahead and actually create projects within assisted task mining for free. So given what we've talked about, I'd like to jump into a demo. We'll pause along the way at the end, specifically setting aside time for Q&A. And we will definitely, present opportunities to put questions in the chat as well, but there should be plenty of time for questions towards the end here. So with that, I'm going to jump into a demo instance that I've got. Now, just to set the scene here, assisted task mining is only applied to Automation Cloud for now. We do foresee that this will be available in Automation Suite in the future, but for this 22.10 release, it is predominantly in Automation Cloud, so that is something to note. We are looking here at a demo instance where I've enabled task mining as a service in my tenant. And right now I see this new task mining experience toggle. This is because of the preview. So we expect this to go away and this to actually at GA on November 17th become your default experience. But we're going to go ahead and see that it looks fairly similar to our task mining dashboards when we create unassisted task mining projects now. We have a few changes. So when we create a new project, we can pick one of two approaches. We can capture known tasks with assisted task mining, or we can mine unknown tasks with unassisted task mining. In this scenario, my Automation Cloud tenant does not have AI units. And so the opportunity to mine unknown tasks is actually grayed out. If I had AI units, that would be available as well. But since we're focusing on assisted task mining, I'm going to go ahead and create a project here with assisted task mining. Now I'm going to do community webinar as my name. I might put a unique identifier as my name to make sure that it's easily identified among all my projects, and a short description. I have the opportunity now to invite team members. Now this is optional because at any point along the project, you can also add team members. So you don't have to add them now if you can't think of the folks that you want to collaborate with in this specific task documentation. That's not a big deal. If you do, this is tied to your Automation Cloud organization. So you'll find that we do have the ability for it to pull down and search the folks that you would send those emails to invite them into this project. For now, we'll just go ahead and create the project. Now, for those of you that have used task capture before, you might note that this actually looks very similar to the task capture interface, where you have the opportunity to capture a trace or build a trace. Now, the primary difference, though, is that this is in the web, and we do have some added functionality to this. If we click Build Trace, we're going to be actually manually building a diagram, maybe connecting various different decision points and next steps. If we're going to click Capture Trace, we're going to leverage a automatic trace building opportunity through our recording client, very similar to unassisted task mining or task capture as you know it now. I'll go ahead and click Capture Trace. Now, I've already downloaded my assisted task mining recording client. You can note that if I hadn't downloaded it, it would actually automatically install an MSI installer. But I've already downloaded it, so it's actually just going to open that up for me. And when we look at it, I would have been required to sign in. I've already signed in for the purposes of time today. And you can actually see that it populates that specific project I would want to capture tasks for. Now, for those of you that have used task capture, this recorder is very similar. It is going to ask for you to kind of provide that consent. You're going to click Start, and it's going to launch a recording that allows us to actually see what is being recorded, as well as the various different actions in that. So we'll just go ahead and we'll maybe look up the Austin weather today, because that's where I'm usually based out of, and we can see the actions, the screenshots are being captured. We have the opportunity to pause or end. Now, similar to task capture, this is going to collect all of my keyboard inputs, my clicks, my types, even my different kinds of interactions across applications. It doesn't have to be just web pages. Now, this was simply for the purposes of demoing to show you, but you can see here that it's actually going to upload those actions fairly quickly to the web instance. Now, once it's uploaded those actions, it's going to populate a flow based off of the actions that I took in the recording task. Now, in a business case scenario, we would generally find that that recording might be, our happy path of our completion of our task. And then it might be 3 other variations. All of those unique instances of completing and recording or building a diagram for a task are called a trace. For those of you that have used unassisted task mining, that's a familiar term. It's still being leveraged here. Now, I've actually already got a demo instance here that has quite a few traces in it. So I went ahead and I recorded the data entry of a purchase order to create a purchase order digitally in SAP. Now, some of the things I love to call out right off the bat, this is extremely performant. We can scroll all the way down to different actions within a set of even up to 500 different actions. We can see here that we've got a multitude of different details already provided, but everything can be edited. So titles can be edited to be more business user friendly, descriptions can be added, and you'll note that PII masking is actually turned on by default. So we can see here that it's masked quite a few of those different pieces within my image to ensure that it's friendly to share across the organization. You can see in this instance of the project, though, that I've got not just traces from me, as this is my icon, but I've got a trace from a team member here, Justin. Now, the way to collaborate and always have the opportunity to include others is to ask your colleagues to record a variant or a different kind of the trace. Now, this will then send them an email that indicates to them that they've been invited and provided access to this project. And then they will be able to access the project and the recording client through that email. So we can have a multitude of different team members collaborate here. We've seen here, we've got a standard PO, we've got a standard PO with a German vendor. We've also got one where we actually use the wrong vendor. And then throughout any of this, we also have project-based access controls. So we can add folks as individual recording users, project admins, or business analysts, and you can define how those roles are impacted to be able to actually either have full editing access or review access, or maybe just editing of the traces that they collaborate within. So in this scenario, we've recorded the manual task that takes place generally for our accounting organization. We've collaborated with another team member. They've provided some of their inputs. And now to really drive actionability, we want to get a comprehensive or holistic view of this task to identify maybe where we can add that documentation standardization or even that automation opportunity. This is the primary, new feature here that you're going to see is the ability to merge traces to get that comprehensive view. Now, there are two kinds of merge experiences. There is the guided merge experience, which allows the user to drive the merge. So really identifying what steps are similar or are not similar and which ones are relevant to the output that you would like. We also have an auto merge functionality. Auto merge allows the product to actually provide you with that comprehensive view by leveraging AI to determine the similarities and differences in those repeated steps. So we were currently looking at standard PO1. So we're going to maybe merge standard PO1 with a PO with the wrong vendor name and a German vendor to find the similarities and differences across multiple different scenarios and workarounds someone might have. Now I'm going to go ahead and for this instance, I've only enabled my ability to use auto merge. So I'm going to go ahead and auto merge those together, and it's going to populate a holistic view across all of the various different traces. Now, again, fairly performant and quick there. We can see here that everybody opens up their PO, might be different POs or different kinds of POs in Adobe Reader, so some kind of PO review. And then folks generally log into SAP. Now, as we determine actionability or next steps, again, depending on your goal, when viewing this, we might actually annotate and add some details. Maybe I actually look at this all as one step, some kind of purchase order review. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete this one. I'm going to keep this one. Now I'm going to say the start is actually really similar for all of these. So let's delete this start as well. I'm going to say folks are pretty much starting all from some kind of PDF review. So let's just clean this up a little bit. And we said, okay, well, we know that this is some kind of PDF review across the board. So we might update this title to simply be PO review in PDF format. Now, at any point, I also could have merged those three together using our guided merge function, but to me, they looked about the same tasks. Now I can see here within SAP login, everybody did the login very similarly, but then I see that there's some conditions that were clearly utilized to determine differences on how to create the purchase order. This would be an opportunity to further dive in and analyze some of these screenshots to see really what was done differently and if we need to account for that in an automation opportunity or in a standardized document. So we can always add different kinds of annotations. Maybe this one was just for the German vendor. And we know that only German vendors add purchase orders in this way. We might say that this is actually the happy path that we want to account for. You can edit and update these various different lines as well as merge these lines together in any way that you'd like. Generally, what you'll find, right, is that I'm editing this merge after I've auto merged. So I've utilized the AI to see what it gives me as my output. And then I've edited accordingly with somebody that might be a subject matter expert or a manager of that department or somebody that has some of that business knowledge that's sitting down to figure out, okay, based off our goal, whether that's to automate or to document, these are the next steps we want to take. What's great about this is that you can actually merge up to 10 different kinds of traces. And so we could have actually selected also stock order transportation POs and documents and merged all of these together to find the similarities and differences. But we also could have just looked at one or two. So it's completely up to the organization and the business as to what they'd like to do. At any point, this is going to be saved and can be edited later. If I'd like to rename the trace, so for example, I've got a few that say auto merge. I might rename this one and say that this was the community view of the auto merge. So as you go through your various different points of analysis, you're updating the documentation to show that difference that you've seen. Maybe we started with one merge and we build it into additional ones. And then we can start to take actions or decisions on the actions that we want to take. Now, let's say in this theoretical scenario, right, for our demo, that we decided this was the happy path that we want to automate for it. This is going to predominantly cover most of our scenarios, and we think we can automate for some of these pieces like logging into SAP with a test user or inputting some of the data directly from the purchase order PDF to this SAP screen, right? Leveraging something like document understanding to digitize and extract that. Well, in order to get this truly into the hands of a developer, a process lead, or somebody from your center of excellence, you're going to want to export this from that business folk, or folks in their groups out to that organization piece. So we can go ahead and actually save this as a Word document or a process design document. We can export it to a XAML file or Studio file to truly get it connected into the automation lifecycle. Or we can simply save it as an image and say, hey, this is most of what the flow we expected to see. Here's the new merged one. We might leverage this for training and for documentation. This is how we start to drive actionability so that you can look at continuous discovery and continuous improvements. We've also found true benefit also to be found here in scenarios where you might automate and then you might use assisted task mining to review the new process and find the differences between the existing process and the new process after it's been automated and find additional opportunities for optimization. This overall, as a product, is fairly similar to the combination of kind of the features you've seen in unassisted task mining as well as task capture. The idea is to be able to leverage all of these features together to give a more holistic view of both the task, but a quicker time to value, right? So I was able to record and capture these steps within 5 to 10 minutes and then see them uploaded and then meet with my business organization or maybe my business leadership to review it and merge it fairly quickly. So this does not require that longer term reporting piece that unassisted task mining frequently does and can maybe be an easier starting step for some folks when looking at mining data and leveraging AI. I've talked a lot, so I'm going to go back here really quick to this visual that highlights some of those key features. And again, we've talked about how this is a web experience that has collaboration capabilities. We've highlighted merging functionality as well as some of the export opportunities. And we've talked a little bit about the improved performance in UX. So overall, what we're finding with customers here, and we're looking to accelerate the adoption of this as well, is this is a very nice and easy way to get introduced to mining products for newer customers, as well as for existing customers that are potentially finding that the time to value with unassisted task mining is a little bit longer than what they had hoped for. So for folks that are already using unassisted task mining, this is easily enabled in your tenant. For those of you that are not using task mining, this is a free feature that you're able to enable in an automation cloud tenant and access for free. And if there are any questions moving forward, we have a few different places where you can find some detailed information. If you're already a part of the Insider portal, we've got some demo videos as well as context on how to set up a project. We've got a post on our UiPath forum, and our task mining webpage is also being updated going into GA for November 17th. As always, I'm available for questions or inquiries across the way as you try to, get your hands on the keyboard and start learning a little bit more about this. This is my email. We'll pop it into the chat as well. But I really wanted to leave some time here for question and answer. If there's anything I can answer live, I would be more than happy to. So feel free to hop off mute for those of you that are online here, and go ahead and ask some questions. So,
Noopur, I do have some questions. You want me to read them to you?
Sure. Let's start with the questions in the chat, and then Andrew, I see your hand up. I promise we'll hit your question next after that.
Okay, so from Manuel, if I understand correctly, you can task mine with cloud computing, but can you task mine on your local machine if your machine has hardware to do so?
Sure. So we do have, local machine ability to create process graphs, given that we have that in task capture. Now, unfortunately, with task capture, it's not as collaborative as assisted task mining, but that is a local install that you can leverage to record and create process graphs in similar ways. We do anticipate that a fully on-premise version of this in Automation Suite will be available in the next year. It is simply the first release is predominantly Automation Cloud.
Okay, and the next question is, should team members use assisted task mining to be doing the same task to get comprehensive data?
Yes, so absolutely great question. What we find is that, within the same team, there are small variations or workarounds that folks are doing across their applications to complete the task. So assisted task mining is a great way to find those variations in detail, to then go ahead and be able to identify them within your automation opportunity, or even standardize for them if you think that they're really actually impacting your bottom line with those different workarounds or variations.
And then from Ashley, does the user need to have a UiPath license in order to use this? I can see this being useful across users in our organization, but they do not currently have a license.
So this is not a user named license. You simply need the Automation Cloud license or tenant available. You can do this through a trial, but let's say you had an enterprise license already and you enabled this on your Automation Cloud. You do not need a user named license to be able to access it. You can actually invite your organization directly through that instance then. Great question, Ashley.
Great. Next question is for the task that was generated by the AI. I take it that the final product can be manually reviewed to check and modify the steps.
Absolutely. So that's an example of exactly what I did after I was looking and reviewing at our auto merge. We auto merged 3 different POs together. We then found that, one of those initial steps was a PDF review, and it seemed to be that they were all reviewing different documents, which is why the AI viewed it as different steps. But maybe in the business scenario, I might want to actually just view it as one step and recognize that POs populate in different ways, which document understanding AI already does as well when we piece this together. And so I edited that to actually just become one step. Now, to that point, we can use the AI to give us some of those initial findings and then edit and change how the AI driven process graph works. Or if we know from the get-go that there are quite a few variations and we have details into them, there is a guided merge functionality I didn't show today that would actually allow the user to drive the merge of each step. So appending or merging steps would be driven by the user, and predominantly is done by somebody that's a subject matter expert on the process.
Great. Okay, can this be merged with an existing UiPath Studio project, especially in the sense of adding functionality to the existing project?
Great question. So the answer depends a little bit. So if your existing project has documentation already created, we could fairly easily then merge in with, existing graphs. Now, likely what it is that if you already have something documented, or automated, you probably have some outdated documentation that was just your initial use of it. My recommendation here is to use assisted task mining and record that automation going through with the clicks and the types being completed so that we are actually getting every step, and then record and merge with other variations. Unfortunately, we don't have an import function yet, but that's a great point. I can definitely note it to see if that's something the product team can work on for importing existing automations into this.
The next question is, can you merge traces in phases, merging 3 traces into one merged trace, and then merge another number of traces into the merged trace?
So there are some limitations on how many remerges you can do, but you are able to merge again, depending on how many decision points or those places where you saw that it actually conditioned use the conditional logic. So what I would recommend is to play around with actually merging the first time and then find if you want to merge again. Likely what I would end up using is guided merge rather than the auto merge, just because the auto merge is going to be dependent on what you've already merged. So that would be my recommendation within that, but you absolutely can continue to edit and review that.
Thank you. And then the last question I have is, how long does UiPath expect the product to be free?
Well, that's a great question. So unfortunately, I do not have an answer for that, as I do not get to decide on the pricing and licensing. I do anticipate that this will continue to be free through 23.4, but I don't have, or into 23.4, excuse me, but I don't have confirmation on pricing and licensing beyond that. As soon as we know, we will definitely communicate that to the community as well as existing users.
Great. And then if people want to unmute themselves and ask their questions, please do.
Sure. Andrew, do you want to go ahead and ask your question since your hand was up first?
Yeah, but I'm actually going to defer to Adedamola because she asked her question in the chat. It hasn't been asked yet.
Okay,
Adedamola, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for noticing that. Yeah, that's why I had my hand up. I was asking because I know that for task capture, you're able to import these documents into the Idea to Automation Hub and link it. Are we able to do the same for task mining?
So great question, Ademola. So we are going to have an integration into Automation Hub. It is not currently in the product as of 22.10, but we are aware that that is a need and it is on our backlog. So I would anticipate to see that coming out here in the next year with this product. Great question.
Thank you.
Yeah, and hey, Noopur, it's good to see you again.
Good to see
really
you as well.
quick, in what you were showing us, it was showing that the PII data was masked. Can you explain a little bit about how that works and help me understand from a data security perspective if the security team wants to understand what does masked mean? Like, is it really hidden, like it's not recorded anywhere, or is it still there but just not visible? Like, someone's going to want to make sure that specific kinds of data are not outside of our network, right? So how does that work, and then what does that really mean to be masked?
Sure, great question. So let's take it back a step and recognize that when your recorder is being leveraged, it is taking a screenshot. It is then leveraging those screenshots to then get metadata, leveraging OCR, and drive some of the AI with that metadata. Now, to that point, PII masking has been implemented at that very first step of right after we get those screenshots, we are masking. Now, the original screenshot is not retained at all. Only the masked screenshot is retained. We do use a cloud-based masking tool. What you're going to find across the market is that is predominantly what is available as well. So it's pretty much, at the same rate as what other folks are doing in the market. What it is looking at is it's going to actually take the identified masking piece. So let's just say we saw SSN, it was automatically identified by the tool to be masked, and it's going to also save it within the actual metadata as a masked value. So it's not going to be the value that it was. It's not saved in that data or that metadata either, and it's not in the screenshot. What I will say is that we do anticipate and are exploring additional opportunities for masking, whether that is customization, that you can identify what you want to mask, or different ways to actually impact the masking as well. But this is kind of that default solution that you're seeing used across the product.
Okay, so the screenshots themselves are it's masked before it leaves our network or the user's environment. Correct. Okay, that's good to know. So that's very helpful. The other one is there a limit to the number of steps allowed in assisted task mining? I mean, you could have someone go on for quite a while, and it's almost not assisted anymore. Is there some kind of limit? You'd be like, I know in Task Capture I had like 500 steps or something. I don't know if there's a similar constraint.
Very similar to Task Capture at about the 500 actions. So
actions,
just want to make sure we're on the same page about the terminology. Actions are every single click, type, or input. They are then actually grouped together into steps, and steps are what you see in that trace visualization. So you're looking at about 500 actions, a similar limit to Task Capture. Okay. This is a different use case, right? So if I have the scenario where somebody had the use case of wanting to record for long periods of times, that's when I would start considering unassisted task mining, which is built for that longer term recording and mining of unknown data across those tasks. This is a little bit more targeted, where we have to just go say, hey, just go record this 1, maybe 2, maybe at most 5 times of instances that you're doing it.
Okay. And so if I understood you correctly, on November 17th is when I would be able to basically find and be able to activate the assisted task mining in our cloud environment. Is that right?
So great question. This is actually already in public preview. So we have 2 kinds of previews for our products, private preview and public preview. Private preview means that you actually need to opt in on an insider portal to access it. Public preview is just another way of saying it's available to everyone. So you can actually go enable this on your Automation Cloud account if you've got an enterprise or community trial or license already, and you're simply enabling task mining. And then at the top right-hand corner, right, don't forget here, so I want to make sure, let me pop it up again. During preview, you are going to see this new task mining experience toggle. So if I just enable task mining, it may by default show you your previous UI, which is this UI. Again, looks super similar, but you can see I actually don't see any assisted task mining project here. When I toggle this new experience, and likely going to go away for GA and just become the default, I see both assisted and unassisted mining projects here. I can filter for assisted, which is capturing known projects, or mining for unassisted. So you want to enable in your tenant, and then you want to toggle this on before the 17th. Afterwards, it likely will just be that you simply enable in your tenant.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Those are my questions. I really appreciate it.
Great questions. Other questions from folks here on the call?
Anyone else? I think that's it, Noopur.
Okay, awesome. Again, very grateful for your time and the engagement today. We really hope that you all get the opportunity to get your hands on the keyboard and experience working with assisted task mining. As always, I am available, to be communicated for inquiries or any questions you have. We will pop in my information here in the chat as well, or you can contact Diana for additional information to go ahead and communicate with the team. But again, thank you so much, everyone, and we'll give you some extra time back today.
Thank you, Noopur. Great presentation.